Good evening, Ramadan Mubarak, and welcome to this very special evening. Each year, Victoria University, the Australian Intercultural Society, prepare and host an IFTAR. This year, we're delighted to have the Western Bulldogs join us. Before we begin, on behalf of VU, the AIS and the Bulldogs, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we come together tonight and pay our respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. For those of you who are observing Ramadan, you would have by now broken your fast and be settling in for the evening. IFTAR provides an opportunity to throw open doors, to come together, to connect over a shared meal. And this is what tonight is all about. Tonight, it's an opportunity for community members, Muslims, non-Muslims, and people who do not follow any particular faith to come together and share in the spirit of humanity, understanding, and community resilience. COVID or no COVID, we're going to do this. I would like to begin by introducing the Vice-Chancellor and President of Victoria University, Professor Peter Dawkins.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you for your acknowledgement of country. And I'd also like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land which we're gathered on tonight, or the many lands we're gathered on tonight, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Ramadan Mubarak. Welcome to Victoria University's 2020 IFTAR, where we come together to share in our annual IFTAR gathering in a virtual way in this extraordinary times, with COVID-19 being a major disruption, of course, to the world. But it is wonderful that we can get together in this way tonight. And there are many distinguished guests here tonight, either here in the studio or more generally watching online. And of course, all of us come together in the spirit of humility from any background or faith. And I'd like to acknowledge the many special guests we have with us tonight. Amit Keskin, of course, Chair of the Australian Intercultural Society, with whom we've been partnering in this event for a number of years. And welcome, Amit, and members of the Australian Intercultural Society. Amit Bains, CEO of the Western Bulldogs, Kashif Boons, General Manager of the Western Bulldogs Community Foundation, and Lin Jong, Western Bulldogs football player, who'll be joining us on screen later on. And it's great that the Western Bulldogs are partnering with us, and Western Bulldogs, of course, and VU have a very strong partnership going back a number of years, and I'm a strong Western Bulldogs fan and really looking forward to the season actually getting properly underway. Well, I don't know about properly, but getting underway in a few weeks' time, and good luck to the Western Bulldogs. Vivian Nguyen, Chair of the Victorian Multicultural Commission, is here in the studio with us. We're all properly socially distanced, you'll be pleased to know. Gay Hamilton, the Deputy Chancellor of the VU Council. Welcome to Gay. Mazita Mizuki, Consul General of Malaysia. Jose Metza, Consul General of Peru. Julia Malamud, Consul General of Haiti, and Nelson Serenor, Deputy Consul General of Haiti. Commissioners of the Victorian Multicultural Commission. Rohini Kapadas, General Manager of the Immigration Museum. Stella Smith, CEO of Crime Stoppers. Veronica Pardo, CEO of the Multicultural Arts Victoria. There is something really quite special about knowing that during this time Ramadan is being observed all around the world by the Muslim community. And this year's IFTAR is particularly significant as it celebrates our resilience and determination to stay connected despite the current challenges we're experiencing due to COVID-19. While we can meet in person tonight, we're able to still come together. While we can't meet in person tonight, we're able to still come together in the spirit of learning, reflection, harmony through technology. Each year, Victoria University embraces this event as we too share the vision of connecting members of our community, which is fundamental to the purpose of Ramadan. And VU understands that it's through this connection that we're enriched as a community and as individuals, and provides an opportunity for us to come together to celebrate the common bonds that hold us together while celebrating the richness that diversity brings. Victoria University is, of course, an incredibly cultural and diverse university with the most culturally diverse student community of any Australian university. And historically, we've always been characterised by a multicultural community of staff and students, and this diversity is what sets us apart and helps us to deliver on our moral purpose to transform the lives of our students and our communities. At Victoria University, we have a cultural diversity strategy which signifies a commitment to fostering rich, deep intercultural connections across all of our areas of engagement. It outlines our principles of cultural diversity which articulate respect, celebration, enrichment, connection, access, and championing of an inclusive and active approach to cultural diversity in all its forms. As a university, we will continue to advance and effect positive social change through learning and teaching experiences, research and policy advancement, as well as through strategic partnerships with schools, industry and the community. Tonight's event has attracted a wide audience both locally and overseas, and we're pleased that this special event has proved of interest to many others. And shortly we will hear from Vivian Nguyen, Chair of the Victorian Multicultural Commission and friend of Victoria University, who will discuss with us her thoughts on community resilience and how the shared responsibility of that concept influences on our society. Vivian will also share her insights into just how the community is managing and how we might explore ways of coming together to ensure positive community impact. I'll be joined by Vivian on tonight's panel Q&A discussion, along with Western Bulldogs player Lin Jong and VU student Ashfaq Luqman. Ash is in the studio with us here, a final year mechanical engineering student who's, along with his fellow students at Victoria University, having to study remotely because we're obviously not able at the moment to have study on campus. And I'm pleased to say that he says that's going quite well, but I'm sure it's imposed challenges on him and his fellow students, and I'm sure he'll say something about that this evening. He's working with VU Student Services and is a member of the Cultural Diversity Student Network at VU, so himself an important leader within our student community. On a personal note, tonight will be my last IFTAR as Vice Chancellor of Victoria University, because I retire at the end of this year after 10 years at this wonderful university, and I certainly won't forget this one, being online, which will stand out, I suppose, as a very unusual one. But it has been great to be involved in these IFTAR dinners over the years, and been great working with Amit Keskin and others in this event that celebrates cultural diversity, as well as, of course, being an event of Ramadan. So I would like to thank Amit Keskin and the Australian Intercultural Society, as well as Amit Baines and the Western Bulldogs for their support in organising tonight's event and for the continuing relationship that's being nurtured between our organisations. And I'd also like to thank Vivian Nguyen, Chair of the Victorian Multicultural Commission, for providing her time and support for this event. And of course, I'd also like to thank all those involved in supporting the event under the leadership of Dr. Teresa Fazio, the Manager of Cultural Diversity, who's our MC tonight. And I hope you all enjoy the IFTAR tonight, albeit in a different format. And thank you, and Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. To understand Ramadan and IFTAR, the Australian Intercultural Society has prepared a video that we'll be watching now, and this will be followed by a Quranic recitation.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. A famous scholar, Ibn Rajab, may Allah have mercy on him, has said that a person who is fasting is in constant state of worship while he's fasting and while he's eating after he's broken his fast. During the day, he's fasting and he's patient, and during the night, he's eating and he's grateful. Just like we put iron ore in a furnace and heat it up to be able to purify it, Islamically prescribed technique to purify ourselves, our inner nerves, is to fast. And during the night, when we're eating, we reflect upon the day and be grateful for all the bounties Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. And we have empathy for all those who are less fortunate than us. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has prescribed to break one's fast, one should eat dates or drink water, for water is pure. Tradition goes that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to break his fast with 3 dates and water. And fun fact, in Quran, the word dates is mentioned 20 times. Have a happy Ramadan, everybody, and may Allah bless you all with sustenance, guidance, and peace.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعاني فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعاني فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون صدق الله العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
And now we have something very special from the community, some messages to the community. It's a little raw, a little unpolished, but extremely heartfelt.
We take care of each other, we check on our neighbors.
We make sure our elderly, keepers of knowledge and wisdom are kept safe.
Our health professionals are our heroes.
Our cleaners are applauded.
Our teachers are commended.
Our musicians and artists help us understand.
Our police are valued.
Our essential service workers are thanked.
Our connection is beyond the walls of our houses, beyond our phone screens.
We grieve those who have fallen and those who have given their lives so others may live.
We connect with strangers on balconies who sing and dance and play music for us and for all humanity to hear.
We remember the resilience of our first people who walked across this land for centuries.
We reflect on the beauty of our unique land as it regenerates after the summer fires.
We know our feet will again walk noisy streets filled with chatter and the clang of trams.
We know our schools will once again fill with smiles and school bags.
We know our stadiums will once again fill with eager faces and voices will rise in celebration of living.
We know our Chinatown will celebrate with firecrackers and lion dances, making our hearts soar.
We know that we will hold each other's gaze just a little longer when we meet.
We remember Rumi as we open our hands to hold.
We open our hearts to belong.
We still our fear so that we are able to hear.
We will raise our words, not voice, for it is rain that grows flowers, not thunder.
And we will create a better world.
A connected world.
Together.
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 The magic that happens when the community comes together. Tonight we have a special guest, as the Vice-Chancellor has said, we have the chair of the VNC with us tonight. Thank you, Vivian. And just to give you a bit of background, Vivian is a proud Vietnamese Australian who has worked tirelessly in the community in corporate, public and community roles, and has actually been awarded the Centenary Medal, Australian Centenary Medal in 2003, and been recorded on the Victoria Honour Roll in 2002 for her services to the community. Vivian has joined the Victorian Multicultural Commission only last year and has certainly hit the ground running. Vivian will be speaking to us on our theme around community resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Good evening, everyone. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather here tonight and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. It is both an honour and a privilege to be with you, and a big thank you for having me here tonight, along with many esteemed guests and members of the Victorian community. I thank the Victorian University and especially Vice-Chancellor and the Australian Intercultural Society for hosting tonight's virtual IFTAR, and thank you for your commitment in promoting multiculturalism and enabling us to come together to celebrate Ramadan. I acknowledge all Victoria's faith communities for adhering to the physical distancing rules despite how hard it has been over the past couple of months with major events and celebrations. I thank and commend the work of imams across the state who have been ensuring people who are spiritually and socially connected during this time. And to all the Islamic organisations across Victoria who have or will be holding virtual iftars, broadcasting prayers and other events throughout Ramadan. Thank you. Faith remains a positive catalyst to people's well-being and promotes inner peace and solace. Ramadan is an incredibly important time to reflect, pray and spend time with loved ones. I fully appreciate that Ramadan this year is a very different one for the Muslim community. Community centres and mosques have been closed and restrictions on gatherings has meant that everyone must stay at home. In some cases, families who live together have been able to remain some traditions such as gathering as household to break fast every day. But we need to remember that people can live alone or may live apart from their support networks, families and friends. I encourage each of you to reach out to those who are spending this time alone, and I thank the individuals, organisations and volunteers who have been leading the charge in supporting these vulnerable members of our society. And it is precisely these sorts of acts that makes me feel very proud to live in Australia, in Victoria, and to be a Victorian. I'm very proud and I'm grateful. So what do I mean by community resilience? To me, it is community service and civic engagement. It is the gel and the strength that keeps us together, and that I call nurtured compassion. Compassion that is instilled in the teachings of the Islam faith and many other faiths that form part of our upbringings and shapes who we are. It certainly shaped who I am. I came here as a refugee and was welcomed to this country following the aftermath of the Vietnam War. I was 12 years old and I didn't have my parents with me. I knew nobody and I spoke no English. But what I experienced was incredible. I was supported by different people in the community who helped me with food, clothing, taught me English and showed me places. The country had policies and programs in place to support my education, well-being and integration. I was able to attend faith activities, learned Vietnamese every Saturday, took part in cultural dances in my community and practiced English with my Aussie neighbours. They were strangers, neighbours, teachers, public officials, university lecturers, and indeed my family and extended family, and many people in this society who have helped shape me and who I become today. That's the notion of looking out for each other and supporting those around us. And I see this on display every day in Victoria. Many of our Muslim brothers and sisters who are delivering emergency relief packages, volunteering and reaching out to others during this season of Ramadan and bringing communities together. Many of the Vietnamese community came together to hit a call from the Nepali community to support new arrivals, international students and temporary visa holders who do not meet the eligibility criteria of the current supports. They managed to gather over 200 bags of 15 kilograms of rice to distribute to these vulnerable members. I've never seen so many bags of rice in my life. That to me is community service. But on the other hand, we have seen many stories of racism during this pandemic, from the rolling of eyes to outright physical, verbal abuse and vandalism. And to me, this is where civic engagement comes in. Like you, I call out racism, and not always successfully, but I try. I take part in rallies, sign petitions, participate in debates, and have a say in what I believe. Again, not always successful, but I try, like many others around the world. There are a few things we can do to counter this. Take part in events, such events where you get to know people around people in another culture, challenge my own ignorance and learn from my neighbour, learn about one another cultures and religions, practices, and broaden my mind. If you witness something, you don't put up with it. Do something about it if it's safe to do so. I have heard many times, again and again, and today, this particular line really resonates with me. The standard you walk past is a standard you accept. With that being said, Ramadan is a special time to reflect, to learn and make meaningful changes together, and I encourage students and university staff to make an effort to learn more about the people around you. Build your knowledge, to be curious and to know about the neighbours and reach out to show compassion to one another. We humans are meant to live together, and it is our shared responsibility to create that environment. Thank you for having me during this challenging time. It is indeed an honour. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian, for sharing your own personal story and your insights and wisdom. We will now move on to the panel. We have a number of panel speakers, and this gives you an opportunity at home to put your questions into the chat facility. And while you're doing that, I might just introduce some of the panel speakers who you have not met before, in terms of starting with Ashfaq Lukman, who, as the Vice-Chancellor said, is a third-year mechanical engineering student at VU, who is also very, very active on campus. He's a club assistant and student advisor. He actually has won a VU Volleys Award for his community involvement and highly commended award for as an international student. He is also the Vice President of the VU's Engineers Australia Student Club. Lin John is also joining us. Now, he is online due to strict rules around social isolation for professional sports people. Lin was born in Melbourne and is the first AFL player of Taiwanese Timorese descent. He joined the Bulldogs in 2011 and was already a senior player by 2014. Lin has many achievements, including winning the Norm Goss Medal as he was best on field in the 2016 Premiership. Lin is an AFL Multicultural Ambassador and mentors African Australian youth as part of the Western Bulldogs Community Foundation Goal Mentoring Program. Thank you for joining us, Lin. And I'll tell you a few things about our Professor, Vice-Chancellor, Peter Dawkins, who is also a migrant to Australia, coming to Australia in 1984 and taking citizenship in 1988. And the Vice-Chancellor has led the university with a mission and a vision, understanding that the university is a place for inclusion and not exclusion, and it provides a special opportunity for students of diverse backgrounds to transform their lives. He also has led a revolutionary block model, which is all about studying one subject at a time in small classes. He has taught himself at various universities and held many senior positions, and he also received an award, a very special award, the Officer of the Order of Australia as part of the Queen's Birthday Honours in 2017. As you know, he's a Western Bulldogs fan and a cricket enthusiast. So by now I think we have a few questions up, and I'm going to start with a question for the Vice-Chancellor sent in by Mujdad. Now, your leadership, he says, your leadership with this event speaks volumes. Why is it important for a university to hold an IFTAR?
Oh, Teresa, look, this is a very, very special event in our calendar. I think as much, if not more than any other event of the year, it symbolises our commitment to cultural diversity and to inclusion rather than exclusion, as you described it. And of course, we do have many Muslim students at Victoria University, but students from many culturally diverse backgrounds, and working with the Intercultural Society around this event, celebrating Ramadan, but particularly celebrating cultural diversity and showing our commitment to cultural diversity is something that has been really very important for us to do. And I just would like to pick up on what Vivian said tonight. I think this year, as much if not more than any, to be able to do this at a time when you know, cultural diversity and inclusion is a bit under threat, and we have seen examples of racism and of course attacks on, for example, the Chinese community. And it's very important that we stand up against those sorts of things and stand up for inclusion. And Victoria University, you know, its heart is very much in this. And in fact, we've just sort of released VU values, that we've worked on the restatement of our values, and we say we're always West, links to our relationship with Western Melbourne, but that's welcoming and it's ethical, and it's also about shaping the future, and it's about being together, and I think that these occasions symbolise our commitment to some of those values, and more especially to cultural diversity. So this is a very special event for me and for the university community.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. Picking up on that theme, we have a question for Lynn from Nick. And he asks, community and a sense of belonging is very important. In what ways has sport and footy been a community for you, and what is the role of sport in bringing people together?
I guess for me, football's given me an opportunity to connect with the community, especially the football community on the west side. We have a lot of programs we run through the Western Bulldogs. One called the Gold Program, where I was lucky enough to be a part of, where we got to sort of have a mentoring and leadership role with multicultural and underprivileged kids. We got to spend time, I guess, not even say like football, just to be able to pass some advice that we learned, pass it on, which is, I guess, helping the community. And then I guess in football club, we're a community ourselves, and we think of ourselves in the community club and getting out and doing as much as we can.
Thank you, Lynn. It sounds like you've been busy as well with all those programs. Ash, I've got a question for you now, and this is from Bronte. And she says, education is a very busy space. The question is it important to have a focus on cultural diversity? And what does that mean as an international student?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you, Bronte, for bringing that up. I think as an international student and coming to a different country, it's always important to know the cultures of where the students are coming from, talking from a university perspective. I think because different cultures and different countries are taught in different ways, especially from my experience. If I had to come to Australia and start university directly, I think back in my home country, it's like if you ask too many questions to the teachers, they would think that in a wrong way, because they would be thinking that you're testing the teacher on her knowledge. Whereas here it's different, because here they encourage students to ask questions so that they clear the doubts. So it's also important from a teacher's perspective to understand what the students are expecting. So if the student's not asking questions, it's just because they have come from a different background. And another great example would be having eye contact with the teachers. For example, back in home country, if you had direct eye contact with teachers, that would be like you're challenging someone. Whereas here, they encourage students to keep eye contact, so they know that you're actually listening to the teacher. So it's very important to, I think, understand how different cultures work. And at the same time, it's also great to keep knowledge for yourself on how different cultures, different backgrounds work, so you could support accordingly and to move the students or anyone to the straight path.
Fabulous. It sounds like there's some workplace tips as well as study tips there, so thank you. Now there's a question here from Tarquin to Vivian. No, sorry, it's from Tanya, beg your pardon. Take this one. We have seen some, and I think it picks up on what you were saying before, Vivian. We've seen some wonderful community responses, and you've talked about those, to pulling together as a community, but also some ugly racism, especially targeting our own Chinese community members. Why do you think this has happened?
Teresa, part of me thinks it's human nature that, when we are confronted with something new, something different, we react in an adverse way. But part of me thinks that this is something that, regardless of what happened, we really shouldn't be looking at a particular group of people or a race and putting a blame on that. And this is where I find it's disturbing, and it's confrontational, and it's confronting, because we think that we have the right to be able to put the blame on another group of people, and that's fundamentally what racism is. And it's really important that we have shown the better part of our humanity through the bushfire crisis, and we must be able to do the same, because that's fundamentally us, the people, and that's fundamentally about Australia. And we, as a multicultural society, and especially in Victoria, we have seen people so many different walks of life. So we are like this, and that's what makes us, and that's what makes us strength, and that's what makes us vibrant, that's what makes us rich in every aspect of that word. So it's really important that that we recognise that an issue is an issue. It is not because of a particular race, and that I really want people to understand and be able to make that point of differentiation, because a virus or a problem doesn't occur because of a particular race. And that's the point that I really want people to understand, and I hope that as we continue to go through this crisis and we start to understand the issue a bit more, that we recognise the issue for what it is, not for the people.
Thank you, Vivian. I think that's an excellent response to Tanya's question. Vice-Chancellor, there's a question here now from Sharon, and she asks, how do we prepare our young people to be leaders in an increasingly connected, complex and challenging world? And I think she might be talking about this post-COVID world we're now moving into, where we work with people of various cultures and faiths and the challenges.
Yeah, great question from Sharon. I think that at Victoria University, I'll talk about it in the context of our approach to preparing people for the world of work, for being a member of effective members of society as well. We're increasingly focused in our teaching and learning on developing what we call 21st century skills, which students have to learn sort of content knowledge about their subjects, but increasingly it's important for them to develop these broader capabilities, such as the leadership capabilities and the sort of skills they need in the 21st century to be successful: critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork. In the 21st century, skills to do with cultural awareness, cultural diversity, being effective in a culturally diverse world, are in our view at Victoria University extremely important, and so we are increasingly privileging that within our curriculum, within our sort of learning outcomes. And of course, having such a culturally diverse student population, and I thought Ash spoke very well about the importance of cultural understanding in learning. And what's one of the great things about our student community is that they learn a lot from each other. And I'm very proud of the way our students provide leadership, such as Ash himself. We try and encourage that through our curriculum, through our approach to learning in small groups, interactive learning, and learning from each other. And so, you know, that hopefully gives you a bit of a flavour of what we're trying to do at Victoria University. And I think increasingly it's important that the education system in general promotes that kind of learning.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. And actually on that theme, Lynn, we're going to come back to you because Isabella picks up on this theme of cultural diversity and multiculturalism, and she asks, Lynn, you are a multicultural within Timorese, Taiwanese parents growing up in Australia. What does it mean to be Aussie to you in a multicultural country?
Yeah, it is a bit of a different to Taiwanese, but I guess growing up, I was lucky enough to be in Australia. So to me, being an being pretty open and I guess embrace all sorts of cultures and races and religions. Sorry, I don't know if I cut out.
Yes, it is about embracing all sorts of religions and all sorts of cultures. I think it's quite easy for us in Australia to do that, isn't it? Just when we go shopping and as we walk around the street, certainly in your sport perhaps.
Can you still hear us, Lin Chong?
Yep, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
It's great to have had you on tonight. And you've been a student at Victoria University, haven't you? And it's great that we've got one of our students as a leading sports person as well, and part of tonight's occasion, and another great role model amongst our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mentoring and the work that you do as an AFL multicultural ambassador speaks volumes. Thanks, Lynn. I have another question actually for Vivian, and I think you've obviously touched a chord with the community because they've come back. There's a question here from Tarquin about fear of cultures. How do we avert the fear of other cultures that comes with change? There's a long way to go to educate. Is there a long way to go to educate people about difference?
It's before I make a comment on that, I just want to touch on the point that the question that was put to Lynn. I think it's really important that in terms of our multicultural society, visible leadership is important, and people like Lynn play a significant role model in enabling people from all walks of life to look at Lynn and say, yeah, I can actually become him. Yeah, I can actually become a vice-chancellor. Yes, I can actually become this, that, or something else. That kind of visible leadership to me is really important in making sure that allowing people to be able to have the aspiration and to feel confident that they can actually reach there, they can actually achieve that goal. Back to your point, Teresa, about we have a long way to go in terms of teaching people different cultures and difference. Again, part of me sees that, you know, whenever we are seeing something different, we tend to kind of have an adverse reaction. But that's not, to me, that's not a major part of our behaviour. We are curious people, we're inquisitive, we want to know something. Victoria, Australia is a very innovative country. We see each other with people from all kinds of different walks of life, and we have been able to embrace each other. So yes, there are always something new about this person's culture or that other person's culture that I want to know and I need to know, and it is a responsibility of each and every one of us. Me, with a Vietnamese background, I'm happy to share my culture, and I'd like to tell people this is what makes me tick. This is why I benefit from my upbringing and the culture and traditions that I value, and that's what makes me special and different in the way that many other cultures do the same. And that's why Victoria is very vibrant. You know, comes cultural diversity, we see all sorts of things happening in our university setting, out in the communities, out in the faith congregation, across the corporate sector, everything. And I think We just need to apply that same mindset when we want to watch a movie we've never seen before, when we want to meet someone new we've never met before, to culture. That, okay, I don't know something about the Muslim faith, I'd like to find out. If we take that same approach to everything else that we take in our life, then I don't think it is difficult to be able to embrace difference, because we do that every day. We just happen to have this particular mindset about someone else's culture that, oh, it's a bit frightening. We do that all the time. You meet new students, don't you, Ash? You go and watch a new movie, or you haven't seen a suspense movie before, but you are going to do that. Or you haven't seen a drama or a romance when you're going to see that. So that same mindset, to me, should apply to the way in which we want to learn and embrace different cultures.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's really sort of taking it from being a group of people to actually being connected as a community, isn't it? And really stepping out of your comfort zone and using your curiosity, your natural curiosity, to get to know, as you say, how people tick and what makes people tick, how they work together. So on now, there's a question here coming through from Peter to Ash, and he asks about the major challenges for our young people facing coronavirus. So from your perspective, Ash, what would you respond to Peter in terms of the major challenges for young people?
Yeah, I think one of the main challenges, especially personally for myself, is of course losing the jobs. So a lot of students here do part-time jobs or casual jobs while they study in the university, and I think that has really affected a lot, losing the casual jobs, because one of the reasons will be how would they support themselves in terms of living. Not everyone do take support from their parents. Some of them come here thinking that they would be able to support themselves. So I think that's one of the main challenges, even which I have faced myself. Of course, I do a couple of different roles in the university and outside the university, and at the moment I have lost a few as well. So thinking about how you are able to support yourself in terms of living or in terms of on a daily expenses, I think that's one of the main reason or the challenges that a student is facing. The other challenge I think a lot of them face is remote learning, because not many of them would have access to technologies and things like that. A lot of students do prefer to go to the university and have a face-to-face interaction with the teacher. Like especially for myself, it was difficult in the beginning to have a remote learning, because I'm a face-to-face person where I'd like to interact with people or teachers and clarify questions having face-to-face rather than sending through emails. But look, we are all going on this together. It's not just myself, or it's not just a particular student. We all are experiencing difficulties at this moment, and I think the university is also supporting the students. Especially they recently had the student support COVID grant for up to $700, and I personally have got that grant for myself, which includes $500 for rent, $100 for technology support, and $100 for groceries, for Coles shopping and things like that. So the university is supporting the students, and I'm pretty sure they're still trying to support the students in terms of fees, in reduction of fees, and the university is definitely working on that. 2 weeks back, I also got to know that the university are not failing any students for this semester. So rather they'd have a withdrawn grade on their academic transcript, which I think does help a lot of students and get that stress out of their mind of failing a unit, I guess, for this semester. So yeah, I just wanted to know that we all are going through this together. So I'm also going through this together with everyone else. So it's how you have to adapt myself. What I would say is I've learned a lot of skills. I've learned a lot of different things. I never used to cook, to be honest, before, but then I've started cooking myself. I've asked my parents how to cook, so I've learned a lot of things during this situation, and I think a lot of students and the young youth, they have to adapt to themselves and find different opportunities where they can get themselves move on.
Yes, actually you're reminding me of my own children who are finding the remote learning at university very difficult.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is. It's trying everybody, but like you, they're finding new skills. So thank you very much for your insights there, Ash. I'd like to come back to Lynn once more, if that's possible. Lynn, we do have a question, and it's from Peter, and he asks, as individuals, we have the capacity to rework our lives to cope with challenges. As a professional sports person, no doubt you have to readapt to the current circumstances and many circumstances just to get to this level of professionalism. How have you understood your own resilience?
Thank you for the question. I guess I feel like it'd be a bit of an injustice to talk about the changes in I guess football in terms of what's happening right now, with people losing jobs over the position we're in. I guess in terms of resilience, I've learned a lot about my football career. Me personally, I've had a lot of injuries I've had to endure, and I went through a patch of time where I had to take off due to mental health issues, and I think people always surprise themselves with how much you really can go through and endure. So I guess that's the personal side of resilience, and yes, it's been different these times for us footballers, but I still know that we're very privileged to be. So it's I don't want to compare that adjusting to anything, but that's it.
Yeah, there's something about having a sense of the positives in your life and being thankful, as you say, to the small privileges that we have, or and just taking that into account as we, in terms of perhaps a compass as we navigate these challenging times. We've started to run out of time, so I think we'll unfortunately need to stop the Q&A component of the evening and move to a message from Ahmed Keskin, who from the AIS. We have that, and then we'll come back for a short final wish.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Keskin, the Executive Director of the Australian Intercultural Society. May I greet you with Salam Alaikum, which means peace be upon you, and Ramadan Kareem to you all. May I also acknowledge the traditional custodians upon the land which we gather, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. On behalf of the Australian Intercultural Society, I'd like to express my deepest appreciation to Victoria University for partnering with us for the 5th Annual Victoria University IFTAR program. I'd like to thank Victoria University and the Western Bulldogs Community Foundation for making the effort to host this virtual IFTAR program, when the easiest thing to do was to skip this year and do it next time. I believe it's important because we are social beings and we do seek company in good times and bad. In a pre-COVID-19 world, we lived in a fast-paced environment and would yearn for an opportunity to pause and reflect on where we are in life and take stock of all the goodness around us. COVID has forced us to do this. Religious celebrations like Passover, Easter, Vaisakhi and now Ramadan are observed in isolation. This period of self-isolation gives us the opportunity to count the numerous blessings we have living in a country like Australia, a country that respects religious and cultural diversity. For the Muslim community, maybe the fast is somewhat easier this year by working from home and not being concerned about the traffic to get back home in time for the iftar meal. This is a welcomed relief, but we do miss the social aspect, as Ramadan is a time when the community is buzzing. It's a vibrant time where families would either be hosting or are being hosted by other families. This time of social distancing is forcing us to catch up with each other after the meal using the available technology. The AIS and its sister organisations around Australia have decided to invite their non-Muslim friends to an evening conversation over a cuppa, maybe the next best thing to being in our homes in person, and one way to compensate this void. I want to acknowledge the leadership of the university and say thank you to the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Peter Dawkins, for supporting this year's virtual iftar dinner. The university under his leadership have been very accommodating of cultural diversity, and it's reflected in the demography of their students and staff. I want to say thanks to the co-organisers, from our friends from the Western Bulldogs Football Club, from their chairman down to the CEO, Amit Bains, and our dear friend Cash Boons for all the work you do to help promote access to and understanding of diversity. Thank you to Viv Nguyen, the VMC chairperson, for joining tonight's program and for presenting your speech. Thank you to Lin Jong from the Western Bulldogs Football Club and to Ashfaq Lukman for sharing your insights tonight. It truly was an enjoyable discussion. Naturally, these programs won't be what they are without the drive of the individuals. So a huge thank you to Dr. Teresa DeFazio, not just about your determination in making sure tonight's IFTAR program happens, but for all that you do to increase respect and understanding within the university and beyond. I salute you and your team for your tireless efforts behind the scenes in tonight's production. I also want to say a huge thank you to anyone who I may have missed. We really appreciate your efforts. Thank you again to the university. Thank you, our dear viewers, for spending your evening with us, and hope to do it again next year. Ramadan Mubarak to you all.
Thank you. We've come to the end of the 2020 IFTAR event. We thank you for joining us. It literally took a small army of people to put this together. What became a small idea grew organically into a huge undertaking. And there were so many people that just came together in a very heartfelt and very authentic way just to contribute something. And to all who contribute even just a little bit of something, thank you very, very much. It is something I think everybody has done because of their own commitment to community, social harmony and connection. So again, to all of the people who contributed, there are too many to name, thank you very much. To all of you at home, thank you for joining us. We wish you well as you navigate these challenging times. Stay strong, stay safe, and stay in touch. Ramadan Kareem.